Hello again. I'm Steve Longo, and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Rock and Roll Show and Tell, coming to you from the No Gloom Ballroom. This episode features my old friend, Stanley Sheldon, bass player. Serious bass player. You might remember a little record from the 70s called Frampton Comes Alive. Well, Shelley was the bass player on all of those tracks, and he's got some stories to tell. So check it out right here on Rock and Roll Show and Tell.
And poof. I've got all kinds of buttons here, man. So ready, set, go. Oh, man. How long has it been?
40 years.
At least 40 years, right? Because there it is again.
The bass solo just came up again.
I'm not sure whether it's my iPad or what it is, but hey, listen, the bass solo. 40 years?
Yeah, it's been 40 years, man.
Wow. Wow, 40 years.
Believe it or not.
And, you know, I got to tell you, I'm watching that clip, and it occurred to me there's probably a couple of things because of how we met and when we met that about Bobby and that whole thing, Bobby Mayo, that connect the dots a little bit. So I have to ask, and even though this is not an interview, I have questions because I have questions.
Shoot.
Mayo, in Rat Race Choir, we lost our guitar player in 70, whatever it was, and Bob joined the band.
And that's how you met Bob.
That's how because he was playing on the circuit, so that's how I met him, because he was from Yonkers, I was from White Plains, the band local. But he was already playing with Frampton. He was already going to England, 73, and I think that whole thing was just starting up.
Right.
So, and I'm watching the clip of you guys playing, and I see him playing the Stratocaster, that natural finish Stratocaster. And I can't even remember. It's on the face of the guitar. It's down like where the controls are. But he had a Wile E. Coyote sticker on the guitar, and
I vaguely remember that. But it's kind of a I don't know. It's a really vague memory, but somehow it tweaked. I think I saw that. The Wile E. Coyote.
You would have said something to him. I know you would have asked him about it, because I asked him about it. I couldn't stop looking at it.
Was that his guitar, or was it Peter's guitar?
No, that was his guitar before he.
Played it. He probably played that guitar in Doc Holliday.
He did play it in Doc Holliday with yes, he did, and it had a finish on it. I don't remember what the original finish was. And this is the great story about that thing, right? And I asked him, it's natural wood, the guitar, and I don't know whether he stained it or what it was, but you can still see the outline of Wile E. Coyote. And I said to him, what is that? And he said, the guitar, when I was a kid, I had a sticker on it. He said, and I had the guitar refinished. I had to take it down to the wood, but it stained the wood, and I could never get it out. So.
You know the story about how Bob became a guitar player? Such a very proficient one?
I do, but please enlighten our listeners.
All right. Well, somewhere before I had met him, he was in a horrific auto accident.
Yeah. And
his hand, must have been his right hand. And he lost all the knuckles in that hand.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. So piano became very challenging. Hour after hour playing piano, he just couldn't do it for a while.
Yeah.
He eventually he got back to where he couldn't even tell. But he started playing guitar because it was something else he could do without taxing his joints too much.
And I remember that story, and it's weird because I never think of Mayo as a as a keyboard player. He never played keyboards when he was with us.
See, I only think of him as a keyboard
That's
player.
just so bizarre because, I mean, I have to, once we finish this up and, I'm going to rotate, I got to have you back because we're not even going to scratch the surface today. But
we got a lot to talk about.
We do, man. We definitely do. Because, I said to my wife, who produces the show, and she's like my best friend on earth. And I said, did you ever meet Shelley? And she said, no, I don't think I was with you then. And that was, we were like 70s, early 80s, us, was when we started up, right?
You and I were hanging in 1985. My ex and I split up. I was, working with Lou Gramm at the time.
Right, I remember that.
On his solo work. That's when you and I met, and I moved over to this little funky place in White Plains with Chris Peterson.
Right.
You remember Chris?
Yeah, I do.
Another drummer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of, I don't know. I was still using hard drugs, and it was a bad time, except for the good things that happened at that time. But that's when we met, and we started playing tennis and just hanging out. Together. So it was 1985 or 6.
So
no, I'm sorry. That's too early, Steve. It was 80s.
Yeah, it was 80s. You're right. Because I remember, I stayed friends and connected to Bobby all over the years when, in fact, the last night that he played with our band before he went off to go and do this thing, and it was 73 still, so you guys, had to wind it up. But I had dropped him off at Carolyn's apartment, and he was so drunk he didn't want to get up.
Or White Plains.
White Plains. When she lived on North Broadway there.
Yeah.
And I'm parked in front of the saying, okay, man, and I'm giving him the kind of, tearful last night of the band thing, and he's like, yeah. I said, Bob, I got to go home, man.
And you got to realize, I hadn't met Bobby yet.
I know that.
When I flew to New York, it was 1975, so a couple of years went by, and he was hanging with Peter, you're right, in 74. They were going over to England together. Bobby even came back with a British accent, which I used to give him shit about.
Right, man. It happens. It happens.
I thought you were from Yonkers.
No. It's a misnomer.
I say, Shelley. But
right, Governor.
I've got a great story about Bob. When I flew to New York in 1975 to audition, this was right after Tommy Bolin and I had moved to L.A. together looking for a singer, and we never found the singer, but Tommy got an audition with Deep Purple and I auditioned with Frampton, and we both got the gig. This was after Tommy did the Billy Cobham album, the Spectrum album.
Oh, I love that record, man.
The famous fusion, the seminal record.
Love it.
Everybody did. So that's when, about the time, I met Peter. And so it's kind of a convoluted story. I'll give you the nutshell version. After coming out of Colorado, there was this whole milieu there, Joe Vitale, Kenny Passarelli, that were playing with Walsh. And I was playing with Tommy. Tommy gave Walsh Passarelli, his bass player. That became Barnstorm. And then Tommy and I continued on and moved to L.A. together. And then we got the gigs with Deep Purple and Frampton, respectively. This was 1975. And then I met Peter because of Kenny Passarelli, who got the gig with Elton John. And Peter had just called him to say, you want to play? He said, I can't. I'm playing with Elton. And so you should try this other guy, Stanley. So that's how I got the audition with Peter.
So Passarelli, that's very cool. That's a good guy.
So that was that's a whole show in and of itself, the Colorado connection. But when I flew to New York to meet Peter and the guys to audition with John Siomas and Bob Mayo, it was spring of 75, and I walked into SIR and met everybody. Leslie West was there because he was friends with Peter. He was the first guy I saw. He was wearing like platform shoes. He looked like the hippopotamus in Fantasia, you know, dancing around. On the
Holy
platform.
shit! With the tutu on?
And I met Bob, and Bobby, he's got this sixth sense. He's born with perfect pitch.
Yeah, I knew that.
He also had he told me, "You're a Virgo, aren't you?" Because he's a Virgo. And when I met him, he goes, "You're a Virgo, aren't you?" I said, "How the fuck could you know that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a Virgo." So Bobby and I bonded from day one, you know.
Virgo, what's the date there, Virgo?
Well, it's between September something and the end of September.
No, your date. The date of your birth.
I'm September 19th, and I forget Bobby's birthday.
Bobby's was early. I think it was 7 or 6 because mine is 21.
So you're a Virgo.
Yowza.
Told you.
Guilty.
So I was so taken aback when Bobby, you're a Virgo. How could he know that? But he had special divine gifts. He was perfect pitch and, special musician.
He was a very, and what really blew my mind, I played with him for the better part of a year. And, of course, I played with him after that. When, between you guys going out, we'd go and play with hamburgers and mayo.
The burgers. Burgers and mayo.
Hamburgers, yeah. And I told you the Atlantic City story and all that whole thing. But when I was watching the clip that I played at the beginning of the show, it's the same guy. I mean, it's absolutely the same guy. He stood the same way. He grooved the same way. It didn't matter.
Bobby was an incredible rhythm guitar player. Oh, my God. I've played with Peter this decade for 5 years, and he's got an amazing band. But when it comes to just laying down those rhythms, spontaneously, it was nothing rehearsed. We just went in and did it, man.
And
Bobby had.
I recognize that from him. He was that. That's what he was. We did, when he was in the band, we did everything from Stratus to Stevie Wonder, Ride My Camel. Right. Nuts.
Yeah, Bobby and I, we bonded immediately. We loved all the same music from day one, He knew all the Tommy Bolin stuff. Peter didn't know who the fuck Tommy Bolin was, but Bobby did.
Yeah, yeah. He was great that way. I remember he had a ridiculous record collection. I mean, just more vinyl than a bondage club. But
he was an octopus everywhere.
Everywhere. He was nuts. And do you remember when he built the studio in the basement with the what was an Otari 16, the 1-inch 16 track or something like that?
At that house he bought?
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with him down there. We would cover Marvin Gaye tracks and try to duplicate it, and he was really good at that.
Yeah, he was amazing.
We played for people, they couldn't tell the difference,
I remember he was the first one that played me when Steve Winwood came out, Higher Things. We're on our way to a gig together. And I could never figure it, Bob, why, don't you want to not gig? Nah, I got to play, man. I got to play. And he just had to be out there.
Yeah, the stuff he did with Foreigner, Hall & Oates, Robert Plant. There's a whole story about the Robert Plant gig, because I was playing with Richie Hayward at the time. And we had our own little band, and Bob came in and snagged Richie away from our little thing. And I was so pissed. But, I got it. I
Love
get
and
it.
War. Wow. Yeah. Man, yeah, I mean, he did get around, and he was, like I said, the guy was, he was so perfect wherever he went. He just fit right in. In our band, and we were still kind of finding our way through what were we going to, what kind of sound we're going to have. He could just convert into anything. Amazing guy.
Bobby could do anything.
Yep. True story. So now that we have celebrated the accolades of our departed friend way too soon, Bob Mayo. Tell me about Ronin. I need to know about this.
This is it's kind of an inside industry joke, because Ronin, it's got the most spectacular players. I mean, I'm the least among them, and I'm so proud and happy to be with them. But in when was it? About 79, I'd been doing the Frampton thing, and I got a call from Ricky Marotta, who you know, from Harris.
Cousin Ricky.
So, yeah, he's your cousin.
Yeah,
so he called me.
Too. First cousin.
Well, then he played with Peter for about a month. Peter was hiring 10 of the greatest drummers in the business and firing them in succession. It was an amazing thing to behold. But I was the recipient of all this meeting of the drummers. I got to meet all my heroes.
Wow.
And let me give you the short list. Gregor Rico, Andy Newmark, Rick Marotta, Joe Vitale, Jamie Oldacre, God rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. Just lost
Gary
him.
Malabar. And the list goes on. And I met these great drummers within 2 years because Siomos, he had his own problem.
Well, the funny thing about Siomos is Mayo called me up and said, have you listened to the record? I said, yeah. He said, can you play it? I said, I don't know. Why? He said, why don't you learn the catalog? Just, come on down. We'll mess around with some songs and see what happens. And I went down there and he had that little set of drums. And I said, what's going on? And he, kind of filled me in about John. I guess, I didn't make the Peter's list, but it was fun to learn that stuff. And so, I kind of got to groove with you a little bit on it.
Well, Peter was calling up, all his favorite drummers at the time, and the guys he knew, Gregor Rico, both of Sly's guys,
yeah,
and then Andy.
And
I'm
Newmark,
giving you the chronologically. This is how it happened. Gregor Rico lasted about 3 weeks. He was too funky for Peter, I guess. and then Andy Newmark, he was too Jewish, dare I say? And
okay,
he wanted a lot of money. I don't want to sound racist, but he wanted a lot of dough, and Peter, and he didn't want to rehearse. But God bless Andy. No one ever came in without a rehearsal and played it down better than Andy Newmark. No one.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. We played a stadium gig somewhere, and Andy couldn't rehearse. And it was the best show we'd ever done,
Well, man, hey, listen, that's how it rolls. So who's the drummer in Ronin now? Who is it?
All right, Rick Marotta.
Oh, right,
your cousin
Ricky. Okay, I bet that.
All right, let me get back to that. We started Ronin after I left Frampton. I hadn't really left, but I was doing other things in interim periods. And Waddy and Rick called me up since I'd met him with Frampton to play with Warren Zevon on the Excitable Boy tour. Oh. That album had just come out with Werewolves of London, was a huge hit. Waddy wrote it with Warren, and Rick was the rhythm section it was Waddy, Rick, and Don Grolnick and those guys, the immediate family.
Yeah, right.
And so I went out with Warren, did that tour for a year, and then me and Waddy and Rick decided, hey, let's put our own band together. So basically Ronin was Linda Ronstadt's core rhythm section. Rick, Waddy, and Dan Dugmore, the great pedal steel guitar player. And that became Ronin. And no one knows about it because we only toured in Japan. A brief tour here with Rossington Collins Band, but not long enough. And so we just went back to Japan. We reassembled the band after 40 years a few months ago, and that's where this tapestry is from, behind me.
As a trio? Are you going out as a trio?
No, it was the four of us. It was the original band. Waddy is the singer.
Yeah.
And Dugmore sings some songs. It's guitar. It's like this exquisite guitar sound, like Rolling Stones meets Neil Young. It's an incredible guitar sound. And so Rick and I are the rhythm section, and that was Ronin. Is Ronin.
And so, when we talked earlier, you said you were rehearsing. Is there something coming up, or what's happening?
Well, we did the gig right before the virus hit. We went to Japan, and we arrived home at the end of February, and then everything got shut down. But we did record we only did 4 performances over there, and we have a live recording that we're going to release as a live record.
Cool.
So I'm going over that material now and finding out what I have to fix, on bass parts, and because it was thrown together so quickly, and we had not seen each other in 40 years. But man, it really sounds incredible.
That's the best stuff, man. I mean, I'm all about that, perpetual chemistry. When you meet somebody, especially a rhythm section, especially when you meet somebody that you lock with, time-wise, playing-wise, that. I mean, you can play with somebody that's, well, you get it. I mean, you're the other half of the rhythm section. You can play with somebody who's the best player in the world, and if he doesn't feel one where you do, or he doesn't feel the pickup where you do, it's never going to have that thing, and it's building a foundation of building a house on a shaky foundation. So, man, believe me, hats off. I appreciate, especially Ricky. I mean, the guy's like right in the pocket, and
he's a legend. I mean, come on, that guy he's played on so many records.
Yeah.
I loved particularly the stuff he did with Steely Dan. I mean, come on.
He's a monster. He's a monster. Yeah. And now this is something that I've been meaning to ask him. Is he still getting royalties from Raymond?
Oh, yes. Rick is probably going to have to set me up in a retirement home. He doesn't know that yet. But all those guys, Waddy and Dugmore became Nashville's most valuable player because he's a pedal steel player living in Nashville. And he is, I'm not just saying that, he's Nashville's most beloved musician.
Wow.
So I'm in really good company with Rick and Danny and Waddy. Waddy's another one. The guy is, his reputation with the Rolling Stones, the Keith, and it's funny, when Linda Ronstadt would describe Waddy and Dan, she would say, well, Dan is the Neil Young expert and Waddy is the Rolling Stones expert for me. So, when Linda would cover songs like Tumbling Dice or whatever,
yeah,
she would go to those guys, and Ricky was the drummer then, so all 3 of them were in that band. That was her best band, I thought,
Yeah.
She had a lot of great bands, the Eagles. I mean, come on.
Well, speaking of that, and I keep bringing this up, have you seen that, the documentary that's out there? Not the one with Jacob Dylan, but the other one. Why do I never forget? Laurel Canyon. Thank you. Laurel Canyon.
There's been so many. Thunder in the Valley, Laurel Canyon is a series.
It's actually 2 parts. Yeah, it's 2 parts.
Right. So I've been following a lot of that stuff. Thunder in the Canyon was a great documentary with Jackson and Waddy. Not Waddy, Jackson and David Crosby were the big talking heads for that one.
Yeah.
And it was great. But, Crosby's another one of those guys that's, so influential. He tells stories about it going over to England and seeing the Beatles in the audience. The Byrds influenced the Beatles.
Believe me, that was probably my first favorite band, and the first band, them and the Rascals, first shows I ever saw.
Them and the Rascals.
In the county center in White Plains.
And Vanilla Fudge after them, yeah.
Yep, Vanilla Fudge. Oh, my God. I was just talking, I can't remember who it was, talking to somebody the other day. The guy who used to own Speaks on Long Island, which was the Rock Pile and all that, and the Action House, he managed the Fudge. And when Jeff Beck pulled Bogart and Appice,
Beck Bogart Appice.
Yeah, did you ever wonder how he broke his thumb, Jeff Beck?
How did that happen?
Well, I
don't know.
Oh, it was done for him by a person who had an interest in the Vanilla Fudge and did not want to see anything take place to disturb them.
Is that the truth?
Yeah.
That's a true story.
I mean, I wasn't there. But yeah,
was there a lawsuit? Was there a lawsuit?
I don't think so. I think it was. I mean, the person that I'm talking about was so actually connected that you weren't suing anybody. You just, exactly.
These guys?
Yes.
Sounds like that's a D. Anthony move or something.
Wow, man, I've heard more than one thing about D. Yeah, it's like a D. Anthony move or a Peter Grant type of, yeah. And there's
Frank Barcelona, all those guys.
Frank Barcelona, holy Christmas.
I mean, Frank was kind of a sweetheart. He was the best among those guys, but, they really were thugs.
Think about it. Here we are. We're kids. We're having the time of our lives. We're jumping around, doing our favorite thing, and somebody's giving us money to do it, right? These guys want in on that, but they can't play, and they can't sing, but they can connive. So if I connive for you, then I'm in the band, kind of.
So, I mean, that's how we got, the collateral to fly to gigs to play every night of the year for a year with the Frampton band because D was footing the bill.
Yeah.
And then when that live album hit, okay, Eureka.
Yeah, and I remember that was and it's funny because one of the reasons that I asked you what year we were hanging out is because I remember, I guess it was the beginning of the end. Peter was still with Penny, and Penny had left, and Peter was he asked Carolyn if she wanted clothes or something. Carolyn said they didn't fit her, and he wound up giving them to the girl I was going out with at the time. So that's...
My ex got a lot of those Penny wardrobe clothes, too.
Well, there you go. So, and that nice stuff, right? I mean, I remember it was like, whoa.
I wish I had my wardrobe from the 70s. Jeez,
yeah.
I wish... Speaking of wardrobe, I can't wait to see the shirt you're going to send me.
Oh, you are on. You are on. In fact, I'm going to... What a segue. You would have thought I paid you for that. I'm going to play a commercial so that I...
I got to pee.
Go ahead. Well, this is supposed to let you do that without telling everybody. Go ahead. I'll be here when you get back. Oh, man. All right. So anyway, we're going to discuss tennis when... Well, yeah. Now, how do you figure that? Well, how do you figure that? I'm going to... If I was playing tennis with Stanley in '85...
We were living up Putnam Bay.
We were in the house...
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking about... That's my wife.
Hi.
Oh, she's your assistant.
She's my... Well,
The producer.
yeah, she's the producer. Yeah. Yeah, best contract I ever signed, man.
Don't I get it? Don't I get an introduction?
Well, you do. You absolutely do, but the world doesn't. She's shy that way.
That's right.
What's her name?
Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Stanley.
She's the cutest there is, but how long we've been? 39 years? 38
It'll
years?
be 40 in December.
What?
Married.
No.
We got married in 84.
Oh, 40 living together. Okay, yeah, so it's been a while. It's been a while.
Any more at home like her?
No. There's, believe me.
I'm a bachelor.
I would send you that way if I thought there was anything at the other end of that rainbow. Not.
All right.
Nope. I got the pick of the litter. But so here's the thing. She says, I said, no wait, I'm trying to figure out what years was with Stan, and she said, and I said, I was playing tennis, and she said, playing tennis, and I
86.
said, yeah, but where were we playing? Do you remember? Were we playing?
It was somewhere in White Plains where you lived near your mother.
Oh yes, Get Me Way.
Yeah.
I have a sharp memory, don't I?
Holy Christmas,
By
you
Sam's.
do. Yeah, by Sam's, right on Gedney Way at the public courts over there. It's amazing.
That's where it was.
Yeah. See, I told you.
You did.
talking
You
about
used
how
to kick my ass, or did I kick your ass?
No, I got a feeling it was pretty close. I think
we just hit. We just hit.
I don't have triumphant memories. I think we just had a good time, and we just knocked the ball. It was just us being, staying in good shape.
Fun, man.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. So, we were talking about Bobby. We were talking about Peter. When you were on that whole big jumbo thing, and it's interesting because I was looking at the clip, and I saw you and Bobby standing together, and I never saw you guys play live. What was the setup on stage? It looked like Peter was in the middle, or was he off stage left and you guys were stage right?
It was. I was just to stage right of the drums, and Bobby would be to my right at stage right on keyboards. But when he played guitar, it was all of us out front, the three of us, with me in the middle.
Oh, okay.
But most of the time, Bobby was doing keyboard work.
Right.
So it was just me and Peter on the front line.
Yeah.
I get a lot of good, video time playing with Peter back in those days because it was just he and I. You never saw Siomas, or any of the other guys playing drums.
Yeah, and what was
Vitale was another one.
Who was it? Sorry?
Joe Vitale.
Oh, Joe, man. Oh, that's Entwistle territory, him and Walt.
That's a whole other story. I'm in a new project with Joe right now.
Really? Well, let's talk about the new story.
Well, I can't say too much because it's just very, we've just started putting it all together, but we found a singer, and we've got this great guitar player that was playing with Lou Gramm, who's I'm connected through that connection. He finished up with Lou, and this is a whole nother show for us, because Lou's retired now, but this is the guitar player from Rochester, because that's where he's from.
Yeah.
Lou, and the singer we found, this guy named Joe Retta, is also from Rochester. So we put this thing together, and we're going to go out and play the hits of our ex-bosses, just like everybody else is doing.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I'll tell you what. It's a great thing to do, and I don't know whether we haven't spoken in a long, long time. But I got a call from Robin Zander, 2012, saying, "What are you doing?" And I said,
I mean, everybody's doing it. Look at the immediate family.
It's crazy not to. So I said, well, I'm between gigs, the thing I did with the guys from AC/DC, it went the way it went, and that was over. So I was kind of free, and I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to play. And we wound up putting a good band together. My bass player from down here that I told you, Larry Hobbs, happens to run the emergency room over at the hospital, but he's a better bass player than he is a doctor, and he's a great doctor. And we had Mark on guitar. Mark hit, and it just took off. So Xander says, well, everybody wanted us to play the Cheap Trick stuff. We said, no. The reason he's here is because he doesn't want to do that. He wants to sing Led Zeppelin. He wants to do The Who.
Well, see, that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to play the Frampton songs so much. My offerings from Frampton would be the Motown medley we did, Roadrunner and Signed, Sealed, Delivered maybe. But we can do Lou Gramm stuff, and we can do Crosby, Stills, and Nash because of Joe Vitale. And my cousin, who's the keyboard player who kind of set this thing up, he used to play with Rick Danko and Gary Wright. So we can do the Gary Wright hits, Your Love is Alive,
yeah, great song.
Dreamweaver stuff. So we've got a lot of material to pull from. And I don't want to talk too much about it because it's not out there yet, but that's what we're working on.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Allie's the drummer.
Say hello for me. We're connected by 4 strings and a...
by Entwistle.
Yeah, exactly. And you should do Midnight Blue, one of Lou's solo songs. Great.
That's number 2 in the list.
There it is. There you go. That's great. That's really great. Down here in Florida, it's charity land down here, and they're always looking for exciting acts that have that kind of flavor. So, it's not charity for us, we get paid fundraisers, but they pay great for great acts. When you put it together, man,
pretty good.
I'll put it. I'll put
the cruise lines. There's a huge market.
Yeah. And
So
I'll tell
right
you.
now we gotta wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you an interesting thing about the cruise lines, and I'll tell you an interesting thing about this whole pandemic. When I moved down here to Florida, I thought, okay, you cross the border, they give you a Cadillac and a cigar, and then you get fat and get a tan. And it didn't go that way at all. I got really active and wound up doing a whole lot of stuff and playing with a whole lot of different people. And but before it really took off, I've always been an artist. I've always done abstract art since I'm a kid. And somebody saw some of it and said, "Man, have you shown that to anybody?" I said, "I think my mother's seen it." And he said, "No. Anyway, long story short, he gets me into showing art in these galleries and this whole thing and all these snooty art people, really different than anything I've ever done before. And then he says to me, this art would look great on shirts. And so I thought, well, okay, but I didn't want to do T-shirts. So you'll see when you get the package, it's in a box and it's way over the top. Everything's like, you'll see. But
hey, after all these years, I was seeing you on Facebook, and I was seeing Mark Rivera, our friend, and he was wearing your shirts. So that's when I started thinking about Steve Longo a lot, because I would see it on Facebook a lot. So I knew we were going to connect.
So here we are.
Inevitable.
Yeah, no. And Christmas will come early this year. But so anyway, because I'm down here, all the cruise lines go out of Miami. I figured,
right.
Okay, and I had everything imported. Everything's in, I got a little place where I keep everything, and I make a deal with a cruise line company. It's not one cruise line. They're the people that supply all the stores for all the cruise ships.
Legends of Rock.
Oh, that's the tour?
Well, that's what I did. My last gig with Frampton was in 16, and we did the Legends of Rock #4. And I hooked up with my old buddy from Grand Funk Railroad, Max Carl, who's now replaced Mark Farner as the lead singer. And he's my old friend from the Bolin days in Colorado.
Yeah, I've done
Incredible
more than my
singer.
share of gigs with Mark.
So, the cruise line thing, that was the last gig I did with Peter doing the Legends of Rock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I was about to stock all these high-end luxury cruise ships with my shirts. The guy sent me the contract, the whole thing, all this and that.
That's got to be a huge market for you.
Yeah, except if I had COVID-19 all over it. Right before I was going to make this deal, the thing it just swept over everything. So.
Well, I was so lucky to go to Japan in February, and we got back on the eve of the shitstorm.
Yeah, it's nuts. That's a nice piece. That's a tapestry.
It's just it looks better. It's just cloth, but it looks incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That art.
It was so cool to be back in Japan. They loved our show. Waddy is a huge star there because he plays with Russ Kunkel and Lee Sklar in Immediate Family.
Yeah,
and that's how Ronin got our back to Japan, because we had done a tour there, one tour called California Live with Ronstadt, James Taylor, J.D. Souther, and Ronin.
Wow.
Because everybody in Ronin was playing with either James, Linda, or J.D.
Yeah, see, we did a rock and roll version of that, like 08, 08, 09, 10, 11. Only I did it with two of the guys in AC/DC. I used my trio and then played with Cliff and Brian and then played with Mark Farner and then, we were out. Joe Lynn Turner and Eddie Money and Buck Dharma. I mean, we did Jack Bruce. It was nuts.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Now we've lost a lot of those guys.
Man,
I'm
no
glad
kidding.
Buck Dharma's still around. He was on your show the other night.
Yeah, good old Buck. Man, he's one of those guys that's going to just always be there gigging, and he loves to play. He's a good guy.
Well, let's hope, the ones of us that are still here, it's bittersweet, and we really have to, and it's poignant, because we lost Jamie Oldacre yesterday, and then the day before that, Peter Frampton, sound guy, died. He was many years sound front house mixer. And but the musicians, we're not going to last forever. So you look healthy. I'm really glad to see you looking so.
Yeah, no, I'm doing good.
Svelte and in shape.
I don't do drugs anymore. I don't do them any less.
You want to buy some?
Right. Yeah, actually, no. I listen. You know what? Now that it's legal, that was my whole thing, was smoking pot. I was always a pothead. You got to remember that, because if you were around me, you smelled it. Because there was no vaping back in the day. It was like, let's get crushed, and we laughed a lot.
Hey, man, I'm excited to have a glass of white wine these days, and that's it for me.
Hey, man, whatever gets you down the street. We're not all saints. We do what we do. We did what we did, and we're going to do what we're going to do. So let's have at it, right?
Well, we're still here.
Amen. And you look tremendous, bro. You look healthy. And are you working out? Are you staying fit?
When I came back here back to Kansas, where I am, I enrolled at the university here. Came home with my tail between my legs, drug addicted to heroin and everything else. And I knew I had to leave the business for a while. This was 1988, right after you and I were hanging out. And I got home and I enrolled at KU, and I spent 10 years working on a degree in Latin American studies and environmental studies. And I studied slave society in the Caribbean, master's work, and I studied the rhythms of Cuba and Brazil. And it was the best decade of my life. And I got clean and sober. And then I started playing again after that. The first gig I got after that, Peter had called me up, and even before that, I got an audition with Delbert McClinton, and I got the gig. And I went and auditioned in Nashville after not being in the biz for like 10, 15 years at that level.
Wow, man.
And Delbert plays with the most spectacular Nashville cream of the crop. And it was a feather in my cap, man, to get that gig for a year. And then I got, they let me go because they were waiting for their other guy to come off the road. They don't tell you that part. But, I got to do it.
At least you brought the goods and you still had them. That's what counts, man,
Well, exactly. So I felt that gave me it encouraged me that I hadn't lost it, and that there's still, life's not over yet. And then Frampton. Then I got back together with Peter for another 6-year run, and now Ronin, and so still got stuff to look forward to.
There's plenty of stuff to look forward to. Believe me. You wait till you hang out in here with me for a while after things clean up.
I want to come down to Florida.
Come on.
See.
Come on down. It's my place it's compact and efficient, and we have a good time, and it's like short walk to the kitchen.
I moved there. I was living in Bal Harbor in 2000, right after I graduated with my master's work. I was going to continue PhD work, and I moved to Florida. I was playing with Venezuelans and playing salsa.
Wow.
And I just got so deep into it, I said, I'm going to move to Miami. And, that whole Latin groove, I've always been into that groove. Tommy Bolin got me into that groove.
I love Latin. Believe me, it's one of the things that...
Challenge.
It's awesome. I mean, from Miami sound machine all the way to the deep stuff, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just, it sits me up. That's for sure.
So I moved down there. I only lasted like 3 months. I said, I can't continue PhD. Enough of the college stuff. I've got to start playing again. So I moved back to Kansas, and shortly thereafter, that's when I got the idea maybe I could try to audition with somebody in Nashville. So, yeah.
Well, why not, man? I mean, you've got the pedigree, certainly, and why not?
Great.
Yeah, you still look like a kid. A mature
I feel,
kid. Yeah,
music keeps us young, right?
Amen. It does. It does. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so now let's connect the bass dots, because you told me that you had an Entwistle thing. So that for me, that started in '87 for me.
Well, see, and you can you'll give me a little history lesson here, because I knew that about you, but I don't know a lot of details. I know that Joe Vitale, when he left Barnstorm, started a band, his own band. He had a record called Roller Coaster Weekend, and Joey put his own band together, and they were opening for The Who, and he met Entwistle. Mm-hmm. And then Joey started, was it the band Ox?
Yeah, Ox.
Yeah. So that's when Vitale met. Do you know Joe Vitale?
Yeah,
you must
sure.
have met him.
I mean, incidentally, but yeah, I know him. I certainly know Walsh. So,
Well, I'm sure he knows about your connection to Entwistle. You know?
yeah, well, we played in a few different situations, me and Walsh. So yeah, there's the connection. He's. I'll tell you an interesting Walsh story, and the next time you see Joe, ask him about this. Do you, by any chance, remember his girlfriend Lisa? Really gorgeous-looking girl, dark hair, really pretty.
Are you talking about Vitale or Walsh?
No, Walsh.
Yeah, I don't. You know, his wife died or their child died a tragic accident in Colorado.
Oh,
Just 2-year-old infant child in a car accident.
Okay, well,
So after that, I didn't know who Joe's ladies were for a while until he met up with Ringo's wife's sister. So in between,
Right.
I don't know who the girls were.
Well, yeah, Catherine Bach. But he, well, you know what? It's he was with this girl, and she wound up getting connected to Entwistle, and it was just craziness. Joe, I think, realized he wanted to straighten things out. I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm gonna clean it up. And so Lisa was a little too crazy for Joe, but she didn't want to clean it up. So John got her, and
John ended up with Lisa.
yeah, and it was like, believe me,
Is that who he was with in Vegas?
No. Why would that be? No, he was with.
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking because I don't know.
I'm pulling your leg. I'll tell you. You know what happened? I mean, Lisa. She was in the beginning. They were like really happy and everything was really good. And Lisa got caught up in the garbage just like everybody else. I mean, we're all human and we all did what we did, but she just went over the side. And because Entwistle had the kind of liquid that he had, she was able to, kind of maintain that Joe Walsh thing that they were doing for whatever. And it just, eventually, it really started to take its toll on John. And what happened in Vegas was he was with a dancer or whatever, there was a, road tag. But he had a heart attack. And, I know John better than most people in the third act of his life.
He had a heart attack.
He had a heart attack, yeah, but I know I wasn't because he would have had the same heart attack if he was in the gym. And that's
because he had a condition.
He had a 275s and a 90 blockage in his. He should, if he had gone to the doctor, he probably would still be alive. But and some people say, what killed Entwistle? Being Entwistle killed Entwistle. Every piece of fried chicken, every frickin' cigarette, every shot, every it's life. It wears you down. So at the end of the day, it was a heart attack. And they said cocaine fueled heart attack. I know, John, he didn't blow like that. But the blow in England, as you will know, was crap. And the blow in Vegas.
I don't know.
Oh wow, I'm sure you've heard.
Yeah, I heard.
But the blow in Vegas was not crap. And that could have
But have you ever been down there in South America? Oh, my God. Yeah.
I believe, yeah. Oh, I see you were studying. Oh.
Hey, you know something? Entwistle, I'll never leave a mark like that guy did. He's a giant amongst bass players. And he'll never, there's only one Entwistle.
Yeah, true story, man. And I didn't know you didn't know how we started playing. Very quick.
Well, I knew he was a French horn player.
Oh yeah, that's where he had all the brass instruments. He was.
That's why this translates to this.
That's what Pete said. Pete said, yeah, this. Who knows? That's exactly what Townsend said. But And I got to remind you about the movie. But with Entwistle, we had a friend who jammed with him at Music Messe in Germany. And the friend said to John, "You got to meet this band," because we did Who covers when we were kids and all that stuff. He to Rat Race Choir. So Entwistle comes to Summer NAMM at McCormick Place in Chicago, and I said, we met him and the whole thing, and he was cool, all rock. He was that, and I said to him, "You want to jam?" And he said, "Anytime." So that, for me, was a license to steal. I'm running all over NAMM saying, "Hey, I'm playing with John Entwistle. We're looking for a jam." And bang, and that's how it started. And he said, and it was the Vic Theater. We played at the Vic Theater, and it was just me and him. It's a funny story, but it's a long story, so I don't want to take up the whole night with it. But we arrive. I go over to Kramer, right? You remember Kramer back in the 80s, big, right? And they said, "We're doing the NAMM Jam. We've got Eddie Van Halen and Leslie West and all the Kramer artists, and we'd love to have John Entwistle." So I said, "Great." So they send me a limousine, right? Because I got to go pick John up, right? And I'm staying in like the Five and Dime motel because at the last minute we couldn't get any hotel. So the freaking stretch that they sent was longer than the front of the motel. I go pick Entwistle up at the Drake, and he goes, "Oh, what's this?" And I said, "They sent a ride for us." We pull into the back alley of the Vic Theater. We go down the stairs. There's security all over the place, but he can't see where we are. We get ushered down a row of dressing rooms and into a room, and he goes, "What are we going to play?" And I said, "Well, we'll play some Who songs." And he said, "I don't know any." And I said, "Well, we'll teach them to you." So the other guys in the band show up. They all come into the dressing room. And he has no idea that there's like 5,000 people at this ridiculous, at the Vic Theater. I'm sure you've done a gig there. Anyway, so the guys come in, and we're talking down live at Leeds and all the the live stuff and all the stuff that we used to play. And he says, "You guys even learned the mistakes." Learned the mistakes? It happened every time we played the record.
I love it.
Yeah, so then we just became, so it was like you and me, man, drums and bass.
Who were the other guys?
Well, in the beginning, in '87, it was Rat Race. So it was Mark Hitt and Dave Camella, and I think we used different keyboard players on that. But then I joined his band. I replaced Zach Starkey in his solo band, and that was Henry Small from
I remember that name.
Yeah, I forget his band, Trapeze or Triad, something about three, from Canada.
Right.
And Timmy Gorman on keys, who used to be the keyboard player for The Who. And Mark Adams, who's now a Hollywood composer named Devin Powers, and myself and John. And we did that for '88. And we were trying to get a deal for the album that he had just finished, and that didn't happen. And then we just put the Entwistle band together and just went out and played and made records whenever we could, recorded whenever we could, and it was great. I mean, we played we played the places, the sheds, and all that. It was freaking great.
Oh man, you got to experience something really special with a really special guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't, that I tell you what, it's been. I knew him. He's been dead longer than I knew him. I knew him 15 years, like to the day, and it astounds me because we really became. It was like you and me, instant friends. I mean, we weren't playing tennis, but we did go bowling once, which is another story. I should tell you that story because it's funny.
That's another show, maybe.
Yeah, it's another show. But you remember The Simpsons? The Who did an episode of The Simpsons, and the guy who draws The Simpsons sent everybody bowling balls, right? So John said, "I learned to bowl," and he went, but he didn't use the Simpson ball. He got a crystal clear ball with a skull in it.
I love it.
Yeah. Believe me, it's a hysterical story, but. So, yeah. So, let's, God, man, did I tell you that hour was going to fly?
I knew it would. I like doing this kind of stuff.
Well, I got to ask you I have to ask, what? My question, see, if you don't have a producer, I'll be in here all day. I just keep talking. Okay, my questions. Because you have traveled the globe, my friend. Favorite restaurant on the road? I know none of us were eating very much out there, but, when we were.
I mean, I was just in Japan, but I can't remember the name of the place.
Well, that's all right.
I love sushi, but I'll never remember the name. I've eaten at so many great restaurants in obscure places. There's one in Charlotte. I can't. It's a fish restaurant of all things. I can't remember the name of it, but. How about just Fat Burger in LA? Fat
Burger works. I was talking to the bass player from the Good Rats, and he said Bob Evans. So, you're fine. Fat Burger.
But the original Fat Burger was on La Cienega.
Yeah.
If you remember. You probably remember.
I do.
And before it became and branched out into the valley and everywhere. But the original Fat Burger, God, those things were good.
Yeah, they were.
I've been vegan, for years.
I was going to say, man, you can't be eating fat burgers and be in that shape. You're in good shape, bro.
Back then, I could.
Yeah, well, right, because we were doing all kinds of crazy things to compensate. But
that's all I got. Contemporary restaurants, I don't know.
That's all right.
I haven't been on the road for a few months.
Well, that's okay. You can, when we do the next installment, you can tell me again. Song that you love, favorite song to play live?
With any band?
Any band.
Jamie Oldacre just passed away.
I did know that, yeah.
And someone posted a version of Frampton's signature song, Lines on My Face. And Lines it was Jamie. Jamie was playing drums at a show in where was it? Somewhere in Oakland Theater, Oakland, California. And it's the best performance of Lines on My Face. It rivals the Siomas version on the live album. It's just an incredible. Jamie had his special touch.
He had a nice touch, Jamie. Yeah. All the claps
and it's the best version of Lines on My Face I've ever heard.
Yeah. Okay, so there you go. And the song that you never want to play again ever in your life. I don't ever want to play that song again.
Show Me the Way.
Okay. Now let's see. All right. Well, there's only a couple more.
And I probably don't ever have to play it again.
No,
trust me.
Chances are. Wow, that's funny. Okay, let's see. Instrument other than yours. If you had to play something else in the band, what would it be?
Well, I spent a summer taught myself how to play the sax and the flute. And I got pretty good.
Really?
I'm not a bad flute player.
Well, there
I'd
you go.
well pressed to deliver right now, but I got pretty good over a summer. So I love the sax and flute, like Traffic. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's two different embouchures, the flute and a reed. That's wild.
But it's the same fingering. It's the exact same fingering. Yes.
Wow, that I just see. You learn something every day here on the show, kids.
Yes, you certainly do. I do learn something every day here on the show, kids. Rock and roll show and tell. And it's a pleasure sharing it with you. So that was Stanley Sheldon. I'm Steve Longo. And if I don't see you in the future, I'll see you in the pasture.